The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. New York Met baseball, past, present, future. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. The host, well, there are two hosts. One of them is here, one of them is not. Marty Rose is here. Robert Cole is on his way, presumably. And we have a guest who's on his way, presumably. But first, how you doing, Mert?
I'm doing well, Ralph. Very nice weather we're having in northern Florida. A lot better than they're getting in the Northeast this week. It's been horrendous storms, and they got another one coming.
This year.
Yeah.
It's been unbelievable. Like Alan Blumpkin is in the midst of it. Mark Weiss is in the midst of it. Guys from the network. I don't really know how, and I could have been talking 30 years ago, 40 years ago when I moved out here. Especially now, I don't know how you live your life with that weather.
It's terrible. I'm so glad I don't have that. So glad I don't have to deal with it anymore. Really.
What was your worst winter in New York?
The worst winter?
Yeah.
Jeez, that's.
I know we've had a lot of bad summers being Met fans.
Well, yeah.
But
they're all. Most of them are pretty bad. I mean, I can't come up with any one year in particular offhand, but the worst is when they start playing baseball like they're doing now, and you start thinking spring, and it's March, and then you get dumped on. That's what's going on now. When you start thinking spring, and you're getting snowstorm one after another, it's just blows your mind.
It's like they tease you a little bit with spring.
Exactly.
And boom. Yeah. That's tough.
Very bad.
Was there anything colder? Now, I'll have you know statistically, when we walked that mile or so every morning to Newtown High School,
right.
Where we live, it's about a mile, right?
Yeah, probably a little over, yeah.
The coldest day we had walking, I think it was like 20 with a wind chill that brought it down to 5 or something like that. It was colder than that, but that one day that I could remember when it was, you remember we had to stop in apartment buildings along the way to warm up.
That's true.
It was that, and we were fast walkers. We had the Newtown pace.
Exactly. We made it very
kids.
Yeah.
That we could not warm up. That was unbelievable. Well, the city this year, for days on end, had weather that cold or colder continually. Now, I know, because when they get that kind of weather, change, right?
Yeah, when they get that kind of weather in New York, it usually does, filter down this way. And, we had some days here where, overnight was around freezing, even upper 20s, low 30s. I'm talking northern Florida. Even in South Florida, they had, 4 and stuff. So, you get those kind of days occasionally that are really bad. But, the way it's now, like right now we got 60s. Last week it was in the 70s, so it's
can't complain
very
about
nice.
that.
Very nice.
Nice. Yeah. Ironically, where I am in Northern California, the weather, especially the last month or so, where you are and where I am, been very similar. 60s, low 50s sometimes, 60s, low 70s, that type of thing. And we just spoiled 2 years down there?
Yes.
Oh, all right.
Years.
No, out of moving back, in other words.
No. I'm definitely done with the cold weather. Whether I stay here in Jacksonville or not, that's another story. But I'm not.
You had your option up for renewal, so to speak.
We renewed our lease, but my wife's sister, who was down here, recently left. They went out west. I think I told you her husband got a job right over the Nevada border in California. So yeah, they're on their way to Reno right now. But
cool.
There's no way that I'm going back to New York. Whether I stay here, I don't know. We both my daughters are down here. They both have jobs, so
both of them are
now
in Jacksonville. Both of them are in or around Jacksonville.
Well, Mary Kate is working in Jacksonville, and Megan is in Gainesville, where University of Florida is.
Oh, wow.
And she's a registered nurse. It's about an hour and 3/4. So since she often gets 4 days off in a row, she just comes back for a couple of days, hangs out, here with us, because she works 12-hour shifts. So if she works 3 days in a row, 12-hour shifts, then she's got 4 days off. So
right, you're not going to move. You have no reason to move.
No, as of now, no. We got to, like I said, we just signed the lease till next January, so we're here for a while.
Good.
Anyway,
I'm surprised Robert isn't here, and I'm surprised our guest isn't here. But
well, let's talk about our ball club.
Yes, absolutely. You kept me informed all day. I don't get anything but radio on my plans, MLBradio.com.
Well, the Mets-Tigers game was, I don't believe it was on the radio today. Because
I know it wasn't, because I've got all these apps. I could download WOR. I could download it. Couldn't get it anywhere. And I subscribe to
MLB.TV. Got the MLB At Bat app. So when I went there today, it didn't even offer the radio. And normally you get a choice of the home radio or the visiting radio. And if it's on
no
TV,
feeds available. I don't think there are major.
No,
I don't think they're doing it this early in spring. I know they did last year.
Yeah, some days they do, some days they don't. But it was on SNY carried it today, so my MLB At Bat thing had the New York feed on today.
So as far as this was a terrific day. Started with Harvey, who wasn't overpowering, pitch to contact, no swing and misses, this, that, and the other thing. But a few things come to mind. This guy's healthy now. He's coming off a really good outing.
Yes.
It's almost miraculous, unexpected, but if he stays in form, you got 3 out of the 5, excluding Matz and Wheeler, and I have a great idea. I'm going to give it to you in a moment for Matz. Make him an Ankiel. That was the moment I couldn't hold it in. Remember Ankiel, the pitcher?
Yeah.
And he was a terrific hitter in the minors. Matz, I remember Matz coming up, and couple of 3 days where he was just ripping the ball, helping himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's not working as a pitcher, and it may not.
Well, have to do it down in the minors if he was going to do it at all.
Oh, absolutely. But and as far as I'm concerned, I thought Tebow was a dog and pony show. I've been very clear about that. But I'm reading stuff where he's made a marked improvement, and he's starting to open some eyes in a different way. Like the eyes were closed because they didn't want to see.
Well, he's hitting .091 this spring. So.
Well, maybe that's after he hit that home run. That article came out, but he did start in one of the games of a split squad.
He's been playing. There's no question.
Yeah.
Look, we'll see how he does. I'm sure he'll probably start him off in Binghamton, and we'll see how he does against AA pitching.
Right. I would have liked to see him start off at A again, because he really didn't impress last year. I think he hit 201 or something like that. It'd be nice if he could earn his way up there, but I understand they have to share his money-making ass with all the affiliates and this, that, and the other thing, and that's cool, as long as it doesn't take at-bats from a legitimate prospect. Like, I saw him up there. I saw that he was up there the other day, and I thought to myself, well, spring training is where other players might come in with that opportunity and have them shine. And I hearken back to Michael Jordan and his experience, which was all nice, and got him something to do after he was suspended because of the gambling. That's the way I look at it. But it might have impeded a prospect, and chances come along for people rarely at times, and may not be another chance for some guys that didn't get a chance. But
true.
And just to market a guy, the Yankees have a quarterback that in their system as well. Am I correct about that?
He actually got an at-bat the other day. He did. He pinched hit for Aaron Judge. Yeah.
Whoa. He
did get an at-bat.
In his memoirs someday.
Seattle quarterback. That was what we're talking about.
Ichiro, speaking of baseball, and he'll always be, or speaking of a guy who will be infamous or famous in his case, Ichiro just signed again with Seattle, 44 years old.
He did. I saw that. That was a possibility, but I don't get it, truthfully.
Yeah, I don't either.
Why?
They've got some injury problems in the outfield, and again, he's a hero in Seattle. That
that's
it's all
true.
about putting bucks, selling Ichiro. You could sell 50,000 Ichiro shirts over the course of a season.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's the same thing with Tebow. I was speaking to a woman in the supermarket the other day. I wear my Mets hat wherever I go out. And, the strangest people sometimes just come up and start talking to you about baseball because you got the Mets hat on, And this woman, I guess she's a Mets fan.
They're the strange people, and and you're the one who's wearing a Met hat, huh, Mark?
Well, it's just,
I wear my Met hat, too. But
you get people, just
I'm one of those. I'm definitely
people make comments, they make comments. Her comment was that her and her husband went down to Port St. Lucie, and Tebow didn't get a chance to play in that game, but she was upset because she couldn't get a Tebow jersey with the number 15 on it. So I guess he's not wearing that number with the Mets, but that's what she wanted, and she could not get what she wanted. So I think the Mets.
And for a lot of folks, it goes beyond baseball. It gets into their spirituality because he's got that in his back
He's
pocket.
a big Florida guy. In fact, he was in Jacksonville doing some charity work this past weekend. So, I think he's a Jacksonville guy, to tell you the truth.
He seems like a good guy. That everything you.
Oh, no question. Yeah.
So, I'm not going to root. I never did root against him. I can't say I rooted for him, but on some level, I'm rooting for him. What the hell? He's 29 years old. Wouldn't it be nice? A guy can play two sports, and I'm a big admirer of two-sport athletes.
Mm-hmm.
So, what the hell?
Yeah.
But for me, because
somebody just joined us.
Who has joined us?
Hello there.
Hi there. Is this Skip?
It is Skip. How are you doing?
Hey, Skip Lockwood. Meet Marty Rose. I'm Ralph Tyko. Very nice to meet you, sir.
Sorry, I'm a little late. I was thought I was calling in the right one, and I was on hold. Sorry about that.
Okay. Well, we got you now, don't we?
Good.
You have.
Yeah.
Are we live? Are we live or is this taped?
We're on. It is being made into an MP3. Everything we say, and I will make it into a podcast as soon as the show ends, and send you a link to it,
great.
so that you can hear your voice on the air. It's internet radio, and we, Marty and I, are original Met fans. We were New York Giant fans, Brooklyn Dodger fans, Murr was, and kids growing up in New York, and we lost our teams, and we became the Mets. So, and we followed you and the Mets, naturally.
We grew up 10 minutes from Shea Stadium, basically. So.
Shea Stadium is an interesting place. I got a chance to play for the Mets for almost 5 years, and without a doubt, it was the best years of my career for many different reasons. I made a lot of friends in New York. I wish many times that I had never left New York. We had a home, belonged to a church, and it was a community that I enjoyed. I became the first free agent the Red Sox ever signed in 1980. And some of that was because the Mets were making a transition in ownership, and I didn't really have time to make a decision about whether I was going to stay with the Mets and stay with the contract or go to Boston. And I came from Boston, so I was going back home. So it was a big decision for me to make, for my family to make, and I often wished that I had stuck it out and stayed with the Mets for the remainder of my career. It was a great spot, great place. I enjoyed it.
Skip, did it put pressure on you to go back to your hometown that you wouldn't ordinarily have had if you weren't born and raised there?
Well, of course. There's always pressure going a place where you lived. I grew up there. I went to high school there. My family was there. As you know, the Red Sox are not the kindest place to be if you're not pitching at the top of your game. And I had hurt my arm the last year with the Mets, and I got to the Red Sox somewhat as a damaged property, and I wasn't pitching well. And the people there let you know it when you're not pitching well.
Well, I'll tell you, if
I
you
think
weren't
it's more
pitching well
difficult.
in New York, they'd let you know it too.
No, but I pitched well
For
in New
those
York.
of you out there
that
don't know, Skip Lockwood pitched very well for the New York Mets. So thank you for that.
We had good teams. You know, we had Seaver, Matlack, Kuzman, Grody, Kingman, Rusty Staub, Cranepool. I mean, we had quite a professional team. It was different from coming. I pitched in Milwaukee before I came to New York, and you know, we had trouble scraping up 20,000 people coming to Milwaukee County Stadium, and coming into Shea Stadium in New York was a very different experience for me and my family.
Skip, you mentioned Rusty Staub. He's ailing, a former teammate of yours.
I just heard that. Yeah, I heard that. The Grand Rouge. What a kind gentleman he was. He is. He was so good to me and took me under his wing. It seemed that the team seemed to embrace newcomers. I was one of many new faces in the clubhouse that year, and 75. And Seaver took a shine to me. We had lots of good conversations. My book is about the 1975 last game of the season, where Seaver pitches 5 innings, I pitched 4, and he got the Cy Young, and I got to be the closer for the Mets for the next couple of years. He was a principle above which I had never seen before. Great, honorable guy. Tom Seaver's still a friend.
Nice. He's out where I am in Northern California. He has a winery. I think he had some health problems for a while, some Lyme disease that he's now got under control. And I can't think of many more classy guys. He is our Stan Musial, if you want
He was better in person than he seemed. I mean, he was always had time for people. He was very much of a scientist in a baseball uniform. He wanted you to work as hard as he worked. He wanted you to know why you pitched well and why you didn't. He was a real he kept a book on the hitters, and I never had a book on the hitters or understood how I got players out in the past, but he did, and he forced me to do it too. He was a guy that was a real coach, and I really learned a lot from him. I heard that Tom has been sick. I talked to him last couple of months ago when they were having the fires out in Calistoga, and his winery was threatened by those fires. And I think when I talked to him, he was out in the vineyard with his dogs, and he was walking out in the vineyard without a golf cart. And he told me he could see fire on all the ridges of the mountains around him. I think he and his family got out. They took a few, possessions with them. They took the dogs with them, and they got out. And I don't think that his winery suffered any big problems. I think the trees made it. I think his business is still intact. I think the surrounding area really got hit pretty hard. But what a blessing it would be for him.
Everything but petulance in this country. We've had floods. We've had storms. We've had it's been a rough year for fires. We've had a rough year.
Hurricanes, mudslides, everything.
Yeah, right.
Marty, they're still getting it up north. I live close to Boston. I live in Florida in the wintertime. Actually, I'm in my daughter's house in Crestview, Florida, overstaying my welcome by a couple of weeks right now. But they're still getting hammered up north. The place where I live in Rye, New Hampshire, is one storm after another the last couple of weeks. It looks like they're getting another one.
Yeah, another one's coming in. Yeah, it's very.
It subsides. Skip, I have one question for you. Do you think the role of closer, and the name of your book is, and the reason I'm asking you, Inside Pitch, My Life as a Major League Closer. Wow, what better person to ask? Today's game, Callaway with the Mets included, is a lot of managers, general managers, are making overtures to changing the role of a closer to maybe closer by committee, or even yet not defining a guy. I can use Familia as an example, not having him lose his role as a closer, but go to bringing him in situationally. Like the game might be on the line in the seventh inning. Do you think the game is headed back that way? I'll just ask you.
No, Ralph, I don't think so. The closer has, first of all, what they used to call a rubber arm. You have to be able to get it up to speed at will, 3 or 4 times a week. You need to be able to throw hard without a lot of warm-up. You need to be able to get your pitch, if it's a changeup today or a forkball. I mean, we didn't have changeups and forkballs back then. We threw crossing fastball and an overhand curveball. We didn't have the pitches that they use today. And the role was a little bit different. But I think the role as a closer is a physical role and also a mental role. And I think a lot of times you'll see closers come in situations where the score's tied, maybe late in the ball game or in extra innings. Sometimes they'll come in the 7th inning because the manager thinks the game's on the line and wants them to preserve something. And what do you think happens, Ralph? They don't do well. It's because they're set.
Is it adrenaline?
It's adrenaline. The mindset is, I'm here to do one thing. I'm here to get the save. In the situation, the image they have in their mind is, I want to walk off the mound with the hands in the air and the people cheering and the games in the bag. That's my role. I am a person who closes the curtain on this game. And if that doesn't happen, if it can't happen, or because it's the 7th inning, I think you're right. A little bit gets taken away. It's not the edge that you need to be a closer 3 times a week is not the same if they're going to bring you in the 7th and 8th inning. Now, when I pitched, you had to pitch sometimes 2 or 3 innings, but you knew it was your game to save at that time. I still like the role as a setup guy with the closer coming in the 9th inning. I think it preserves some great history in the game. I don't think you're going to change the rules. And I just love to watch them pitch because I can put myself in that role. I can feel myself out there. I know what it's like.
What did you do after you retired? You had the engine running and it was in neutral for the moments that you just described. How did you handle it?
Not well. Once they take your uniform away, you don't get in the locker room anymore. You have a uniform packed in a bag. It's got a number on it, and they send you home. There's an economic thing that happens to you. You lost your paycheck. Socially, you were the most important thing, in the family and all that. And psychologically, you had something you did was important. All of that gets taken away when you lose the uniform. And I was determined to do something special. I wanted to do something great still. So I pursued a PhD at Columbia University while I was still with the Mets. And then when we left New York to come to Boston, I practiced sports psychology a little bit with a friend of mine. And then I decided to get an MBA from the Sloan School at MIT. So I substituted professional baseball with being a professional student, and tried to be the best I could be in business.
And you succeeded in that. I don't know about your business career. I'm sure that's like with everyone, it's a thing in progress. but you certainly succeeded in obtaining your goal to become lettered. And
I'm very goal oriented. I like finishing things. I like, having a deadline and seeing it through. I love coming in the eighth inning and knowing you've got 6 outs to get. Those were things that were important to me. I become very focused, very driven. If I can just plug the book, that's what I'm trying to make the reader see with my book, is that I try to take them with me onto the field. In the 30 or 40 years I've been out of baseball, people have asked, what's it like out there? What do they talk about? What's going on in the dugout? What's the catcher say to you when he comes out to the mound? And what I try to do is give you a first-person present tense narrative of what that's like, what those conversations are really about, what it feels like to be on the mound, what it feels like to be in the uniform. That's what I was hoping to accomplish with the book.
Skip, did you ever get to meet Jim Brosnan?
No, I didn't. I don't know him.
Jim Brosnan wrote 2 books. He was a relief pitcher with the Cincinnati Reds when they won it all in '61. And he became an author during his career. It was a Jim Bouton type book, but much like you describe your book, it was called Pennant Race was one of them, and one of them was called The Long Season. And you might. I think
I recall The Long Season.
Okay, you will enjoy those immensely, as Marty and I will enjoy reading your works, because that is exactly what Jim Brosnan did. He put you there. He identified the players as not just being mechanical, as being human beings with feelings, thoughts, up days, down days, family matters, this, that, and the other thing. His books, critically acclaimed and all-time great baseball books. I can't wait to read yours, Skip. I'm going to ask you one more question, then turn you over to Marty. Is there anything in the book that you wish you had put in, and is there anything in the book that you wish you hadn't put in?
Yeah, these are stories that happened during my career, and I only picked the 1 year in 1975. I played 18 years, 12 and a half, 13 in the big leagues, and there's a lot of stories that hit the cutting room floor here that I had in the book, and because I had the facts wrong or it wasn't the right year, there was something wrong with the particular story to match up to the story I was telling in my book. And I wish that I had a chance to tell some of the other great stories.
Hey, would you tell one of them to us?
I will. I had never been in the National League before I got to the Mets. I had never visited National League City, and I certainly didn't know those players that we were playing against. I didn't know the Mets. I didn't know any of the players we were playing on the field. And I went into Pittsburgh for the first time in my life and to face the Pirates. And Jerry Grody, who was a catcher, great catcher with the Mets, super catcher, said to me, tomorrow, if you get into the game and Stargell comes up, he says, I want you to knock him down. And I don't want you to hit him, but I want you to knock him down. And so I said, okay, really, you just knock him down, but don't hit him. I don't know whether you remember my career at all, but I wore big, thick Ryan Duran glasses when I played.
I do remember that.
And they were thick puppies. That's why I didn't play outfield. These glasses would have set my eyebrows on fire in day games. These glasses were industrial strength glasses. So like Ryan Duran, I used to milk that for everything it's worth, you know. So as it happened, the next day I did get the game. Stargell does come up in the 8th inning, and I throw the ball behind him, and I actually knocked the bat boy down with the ball. And Grody comes out from behind the plate, and he takes his mask off. True story. Comes out, takes his mask off, and he says, "This guy's left-handed." He shouts out to me. So Stargell's looking at me now, and he doesn't. So he says, "What? You know, this guy can't see me. I've got my glasses off now, and I'm wiping them on my shirt." And so Grody says, "You know, from that pitch he just threw it. It looks like he thinks you're a right-handed batter." So he said, "I just want him to make sure that, you know," he said, "he hurt a guy last game he pitched in Cincinnati. I don't want him to hit you, but at least he knows you're a right-handed batter." And so from Stargell and I got to know each other over the years in the league, but it always come over to me and take the glasses off and look at them and shiver, you know, ooh, and then give the glasses back to me. That story didn't make the book. I wish it had, but it was not in there.
That's a good one.
Was there any that were in there that were either came out wrong, or you look back, man, maybe I should have substituted that one?
Yeah, there was a couple particular stories that I had about my years with Kansas City when I was with the Kansas City A's, and this was a Charlie Finley team, and the A's were kind of a cuckoo bunch, and we had many funny stories, and I had one particular one where it was Farmers Day, and there were some shenanigans about Farmers Day that were going on with the A's that were just hilarious. One of the players there was a menagerie of animals at the old county stadium coming in. There was monkeys and pigs, and if you remember, Charlie Finley had mules in the outfield, sheep in the outfield. It was crazy what he would do. One particular player gave the monkeys an amphetamine before the game and did some other things to the mule and to the grounds crew that were just hilarious. This was all in the middle of Farmers Day, because Farmers Day was coming. Well, the monkeys went crazy, and the mule had a diuretic problem, and the whole thing was just hilarious. And I named that player, and when I called him and told him that I was going to name him by name in the book, he said, go right ahead and do it." And then I thought, you know, he has some sons, and I don't want this to be a problem ever by naming somebody that even, you know, slightly has a negative thing to it. So I took his first name out of it. And even though he wanted to keep it in because the stories were worth it, I ended up taking his name out. So you'll see the story
his
in
full
there.
name out of it. You took his full name out of it.
I took his full name out of it, yeah.
Okay. I have another show that I host on this network with Nancy Finley, who is Charlie's niece and Carl's daughter. And she was a little girl back then when you pitched.
Yeah, I didn't know her.
I thought you might, and I thought someday you might want to come on that show and join Nancy.
Well, I'd love to do that.
Okay.
Charlie was a great mentor for me. He stuck with me. I started as a third baseman, I think you know, changed over to pitching. Charlie was the guy that helped me along, continued to pay me while I made that very painful change in my career. He was always an advocate, a true friend, Charlie Finley.
I contend that Charlie Finley should be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm glad you agree with me and I also contend there are a number of folks who shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, executives and what have you. Could start with Tom Yorkie, the owner of your home team. I thought he was a racist. To be honest with you, that's probably a story for another day. Were you there when Tom Seaver when Grant dumped Seaver and Kingman?
Oh yeah. When I was living in Greenwich at the time, Seaver was my ride to the ballpark. He had a little Porsche foreign car with a convertible top, and we used to outrun the Connecticut police to Shea Stadium every day. He was a great friend. I miss him. One day, my ride didn't show up to the ballpark. I'm waiting. It's 4:30. It's 5 o'clock. We got to get to the ballpark. Batting practice starts at 5:30, and even Tom's heavy foot's not going to get us there in time. And I had to drive myself. So I get to the ballpark. I don't know what happened. And he got traded. And he was. I really didn't know until I got to the ballpark what had happened. I knew something was up because he didn't show up to pick me up. But I certainly was there, and he left a big hole in the franchise, a big hole in the starting rotation.
We all remember that day.
What a leader he was.
Awful. I have a question, Skip. Is it true that you were the number one pick in the country by Charlie Finley's A's?
Well, it's hard to know who was number one. This was before the draft. This was the year I signed in 1964. And they had the first draft in 65. So they were sending bird dogs to my high school game, and then guys in suits would come to the high school game, and then more guys with suits would come to the game. And so when I signed, I had 7 people came in to make me an offer. I heard that Tom Eakin, who was also a very fine player in California, was signing at the same time. And he was the number one choice. But I was close to being number one. There was a lot of Finley was trying to sign as many different prospects as he could that year. If you remember, Catfish Hunter signed, and Joe Rudy signed, Dave Duncan. I mean, all these. Maybe Dave was a year later, but he was trying to sign a lot of great players. I got $135,000 as a signing bonus, and I don't know whether that was tops or not. The scouts told me that I was the number one pick. I'm not sure. To be honest with you, I'm not sure. It's tough to measure because there wasn't a draft that year.
Oh, okay.
Great.
May I ask you about your first baseball card? And I'll tell you why in a moment. Do you remember that? And did that make an impression on you?
The one with 4 of us on it, with Catfish on it, and Blue Moon Autumn. There's a rookie card.
Yes.
That has 4 of us on it.
How about that?
Yeah. Catfish was my roommate. Catfish Hunter was my roommate. You know something that you may not know about Catfish Hunter? Catfish Hunter joined the team in spring training in 65. He was my roommate. Knocked on the door. He was from Hertford, North Carolina. He was limping, and he was bleeding from the foot. And he had just shot his little toe off in a hunting accident. And Charlie didn't know about it. So here's my roommate limping in because he had been on the plane and the airport and cab ride and everything. So he's got 9 toes, limping into the hotel room. And I went to shake his hand, and his right hand had an extra finger on it, an extra little finger. So he had like a stub, little finger on his right hand. So when you shake hands with him, it's like shaking hands with a popcorn box.
Wow.
So you may not know this, but Catfish Hunter had 11 fingers and 9 toes.
I didn't know that. And there's no way to look that up, as Casey Stengel would have said.
You can't look that up.
Right, for sure. There's no record book that would do it. Hey, Skip.
Well, Nate Archer was on that card, and Blue Moon Odom was on that card, and it might have been Don Bushhorn was also on that card. It's worth some money these days, or if you got one, save it.
I don't, but I'll look for one for sure. Like I said, I got your book in the mail. I'm going to treasure that, and we really enjoy talking. Mert, is there anything else that you'd like to ask her for?
Well, I had some names of guys that Skip played with, like Seaver, Ryan, Hunter, but then I saw a name that surprised me a little bit. I wonder if it's true. Satchel Paige. Did you know him?
Oh, yeah, Satchel Paige. There's another name in the book that you'll come up against called Jesse Owens. So
really?
In the book, yeah. So there's a couple names in there that, as I go through my career, you'll come up against. Jesse Owens is a nice story in the book. And Satchel Paige was a pitcher that was being brought in by Charlie, and the Red Sox were in town. And I was a rookie. My locker was in the back of the clubhouse, back near the urinals, back near the baths. And I came in one day, and I think it was in August, and my name had been half pushed out of the little slot on the top of the locker, and another name had been pushed in beside me. So obviously I was going to have to share the locker with this guy, Paige, and in all capital letters.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know who that is, and I have no idea whether, and so I'm sitting there in this little stool, and they bring over a rocking chair from one of the offices, and they put that next to my locker. And here comes Satchel Paige, and I didn't know who it was. And somebody said, meet Satchel, and now I'm putting it together. This is Satchel Paige. And he had pitched in the Negro Leagues for most of his career and everything. Great pitcher, tall, skinny guy, and he has some stories. Now Satchel had immediately, it must have been 15 reporters came over. I don't even know whether the reporters knew where my locker was, but all of a sudden they did. And he came over, and they all came over and were talking to him, and he had painted his house money green when in Kansas City. I guess he lived in Kansas City, and he had stories and just yarns that he would tell and everything. And so I listened for a while, and then, we had batting practice, and I had to go and do some things. I really never got to talk with him very much until the game was over, and we had an adult beverage, even though I was only 17. And
how old was he then?
They said he was 52.
Wow.
I don't know whether birth certificates, he might have been older than that. Maybe the two had been named, been some different number before that. I think Charlie was obviously trying to get some press coverage from that. But he pitched in, I think, the Red Sox beat him. Bill Monbouquet, I think, pitched against him that day with the Red Sox and might have got a hit to beat him, if my memory serves me right. But I did play, same uniform, same locker with Satchel Paige.
And you got coached by Bill Monbouquet in the Mets system, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Bill was around. I knew Bill because I was with the Sox do pretty good with their alumni. So Bill died a couple of years ago, but I saw him a lot as an alumni, back at Fenway Park. What a good athlete he is, or was.
What a hell of a pitcher he
was. I never saw him pitch, but I was there that game. I don't remember it. You know who was around the Mets clubhouse all the time was Willie Mays. So the years that I was at Shea Stadium, Willie would walk in. And he was, talking with a high squeaky voice and laughing. And I had a lot of wonderful people, famous people, great Hall of Famers, that I had a chance to shake their hand. Great privilege.
Hey, one of my co-hosts on another podcast on this network is Lenny Randall, who played third base for you guys.
I do. He will know Skip Lockwood. Lenny and I were good buddies. Good friends years ago.
Everybody loves
you
Lenny.
Tell him I got gray hair now. If you see him, you tell him my hair turned gray.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you will give me your number off the air, I will have him call you, and the three of you can, the two of you and I can do a little show, and you can reacquaint. That would be fun.
Well, that would be good. It's good for me to remember these stories and to talk to you. The book helps me to remember, and I hope it helps people to remember. You know, baseball's an oral tradition. The stories are supposed to be spoken, and the stories get forgotten. And so when people get together, they tell the stories about what it was like when they played. And ordinarily you don't get to listen. You can't hear what's going on. You didn't share the uniform. So this
Skip, where can one get the book?
Well, it's out tomorrow, as luck would have it.
Okay.
Inside Pitch, you can get it on Amazon. And there's an order number. If you just look it up on Amazon, it's available for purchase tomorrow. We've been waiting a couple of weeks for this to come out, and the come out date is tomorrow.
Excellent. Beautiful. Congratulations, sir, on
Thank
a
you.
number of different things. You're a Renaissance man.
Well, I wish I was pitching still in uniform. I'd have a bigger car, maybe. I don't know. Hey,
I'll tell you what. We both wish we ever pitched in uniform.
It was fun,
and all of our audience does as well. Congratulations for that, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Mert, anything else you'd like to ask?
No, that covers it for me. It's been wonderful. I enjoyed this a lot, and I'll look forward to the book.
Nice.
Thank you. You'll like it.
Thank you, Skip. Please come back. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, New York Met Baseball, past, present, future. I'm Ralph Tyko, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Robert Cole wasn't here. Marty Rose was, and our guest was Skip Lockwood. Thank you again, gentlemen. It was fun.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.